Well, I'm back again, and in the same day, within a few hours, I'm back again with the news again. And why? Because suddenly there is lots of news about, which I'm sure you're not hearing about because it's been hidden by the traditional media outlets, like the television and the newspapers and the established traditional news outlets. But what I want to talk to you today is another event that is concerning to me, and it is again on women. So earlier on today, I mentioned that the Supreme Court of the UK has defined what a woman is, and a woman they define is an adult female. And I'm back on women's again, but this time a women's problem. Yes, a male talking about women's problems, but this one is about COVID. Yes, let's not forget it. Let's not forget, because the results and the conditions are still with us. Yes, they are. So a study by Natasha Hubley was published on the 20th of April, so 2 days ago, and it confirms menstrual irregularities following the COVID shots. So this is the vaccine. Throughout the debate over the safety of COVID-19 shots, many women have expressed concerns about the relationship between the shots and the menstrual cycle irregularities in fertility. In a study published in the journal Frontiers in Immunology, researchers validated the review by these women that there are unsettling menstrual irregularities following the receipt of the COVID shots, and the differences in female responses to vaccines should be acknowledged and further studied. Since there is a prominent sex bias in the immune response to infectious diseases in women and men, get there again, there's a prominent sex bias in the immune response to infectious diseases in women and men. They react differently. Women and men react differently to infectious diseases. Now, you may not have realised that, but yes, it's true. I mean, women say, oh, that's a men's disease because he's suffered so badly. You've heard that one. The role of sex hormones and cortisol becomes important. The authors stated women exert robust immune response to antigenic encounters via cell-medicated and humoral arms. Now, I don't know what that means. You don't either. I know you don't. Don't pretend you do. The inclusions of women in vaccine trials have been marginalised over the years, which resulted in unwanted high-dosage administrations of vaccines in women. They were given too much, and I'll explain that later. The authors offered validity to the menstrual cycle as the fifth vital sign and an overall gauge of well-being for women. The intricate chemistry of various factors and signals can affect the menstrual cycle, inducing changes in intensity and duration of the bleeding and the length of the cycle, accompanying pain and absence of the cycle entirely. So the menstrual cycle can be lengthened, or it can be disappear altogether. It can induce the intensity and the duration. Although the change in menstrual pattern after vaccination is not universal, it not happens to every woman, its effect is quite significant. The authors stated heavier and longer bleeding and less time between cycles after the COVID shots. According to regulatory data from the United Kingdom, so it's been confirmed, more than 39,000 suspected cases of menstrual disturbances were reported. An additional study on the cohort in the United States, more than 2,400 women reported that 55% of women receiving the Pfizer mRNAs community biologic, and 35% who received the Moderna mRNA Spikevax, and 7% who received the Johnson & Johnson adenovirus underwent changes in their menstrual cycle. So we're looking at 55%, 35% as the two major ones. An additional Norwegian study on young adult women found significant disturbance in the menstrual cycle, including heavier bleeding patterns and an increase in the duration of the menstruation and a shortening of the period between the cycles. So you can see more bleeding, more intense pain, and a shorter period between the two menstrual cycles. So that is a significant change, isn't it, in the menstrual cycle of our women. Several mechanisms may explain menstrual cycle changes after the COVID shots. The author suggests several potential mechanisms of action for the menstrual changes, such as higher cortisol levels in women and the inflammation responses triggered by the COVID shots. Interaction between the immune system and the sex hormones has also been proposed as a reason for the differences in immune responses by women versus men following receipt of the COVID shot. So, because of men and women are different, their immune responses are different, and this is one of the reasons why the menstrual cycle is changed. Some researchers suggest that the estrogen receptors are widely expressed on various immune cells, such as natural killer cells and T cells. There is a correlation between estrogen and the immune competence regulation and higher incidences of autoimmune disorders in women. Because estrogen and progesterone levels vary throughout the phases of the menstrual cycle. This can also affect how and what extent women react to inflammation stimulated by both infections and the vaccine. So let's think about what we've just read, what I've just said. And what we're seeing is that women are having different reactions than men are to the vaccines, and because of their estrogen levels, of course, men have very small estrogen levels compared with women, and there is an interaction because the estrogen is what's seen as attacking. It's the T cells in it which are the repair cells and the attack cells which attack diseases and foreign bodies in our bodies, in our bloodstream. So I hope that explains it better. I'm struggling a little bit at the moment, as you can tell with my words, but I hope I'm getting it over to you. Now, instances of viral infections have disclosed that women have a more robust immune response than men. The clinical implications of sex bias between infectious studies is much more needed, where a detailed consideration of the amount of drug and pharmacologicals in men and women should be addressed, which I said earlier. I said, that women have a better response, and so they need less ingredients in the vaccines. They need a lower dose. That's better, isn't it? Explanation. Women were not included in medical trials in America until 1993. Now, let me tell you, vaccines are uniquely affect female physiology and menstrual cycles is not a new phenomenon. The human papillomavirus, HPV is easy for me to say, vaccine has been associated with reports of ovarian insufficiency. So the egg inside the woman ovaries, insufficiency after they've had the vaccine, as well as increased follicle stimulation hormone, FSH, menstrual irregularities and premature menopause in women. Research studying possible causes behind this association highlight the hyperimmune response provoked by the HPV vaccine. Menstrual abnormalities were also observed in Japanese women after the hepatitis B vaccine, with similar disturbances reported in 1913 after the typhoid vaccination. Women, as I say, were not included in the clinical research until 1993. Prior to 1993, women were largely left out of clinical research studies, and there's been major gaps in scientific knowledge about the effects of the vaccine on women. In 1986, a policy that excluded women from clinical research was revisited and revised. Now, in 1993, the US Congress passed a law requiring the inclusion of women in clinical research, but clinical trial data does not often report the intersection of sex and race and data of women of colour. In particular, that's lacking. Now, Martha Galati is an MD, medical doctor, a physician who gives lectures at medical schools about sex differences in the heart and cardiology, in cardiology care, and says that many students tell her that they are hearing about these biological differences between men and women for the first time, with male biology being taught as the default. Dr. Galati states that learning about how female biology is different from organ systems and hormones and cellular differences is considered a specialised interest, rather than the norm that there are two, aren't there? There's two sexes, and only the one is being used. It causes women problems. These are our women, these are our wives, these are our daughters. We should be looking after them. Failure to acknowledge differences between males and females, and the study that affects the medications and other medical interventions on women has contributed to women experiencing adverse effects from medication at twice the rate of men. These are medical reports. I'll read that one again. Failure to acknowledge differences between males and females, and the study of the effects of medications and other medical interventions on women has contributed to women experiencing adverse effects from medications twice the rate of men. One study found that women aged 18 to 64 generated antibodies vigorously against the influenza vaccine, and that women's reactions to just half a dose of the flu vaccine was equivalent to the reaction of men who received the full dose. Yet the recommendations of the vaccines and doses are the same for men and women, without consideration for the gender differences and the responses to the vaccines. The medical profession is employed to look after our health, and there they are ignoring that they're giving twice the amount of medicine and interventions to women than they need and require. That is harming their systems, their internal systems. Because women's concerns about health are often ignored and minimised, concerns about infertility and menstrual changes associated with COVID shots were no different and were largely designated as misinformation by the media, the press, and the health professionals. You're moaning about nothing. Voices concerns about menstrual cycle changes often labelled dramatic misinformation. They were shut up. People who complained that women were treated the same as men were shut up. An article written by Science Direct is an example of how women were gaslighted when they talk about personal experiences with changes in their menstrual cycles after getting vaccinated. A reflection of the ignorance about the biological effects of the vaccine on women, and the bias against the importance of anecdotal evidence as a red flag. The authors of the Science Direct article stated that refuting and correcting misleading claims is a difficult task, as individuals record dramatic information more readily available than science-based factual information that counters it. Yes, and that is the media again, governments, media, and the health service gaslighting us and overriding our concerns about what's happening to our women and our daughters. And it's do you know, I do these posts and I'm flabbergasted. I'm totally flummoxed. I'm thrown off. This is why I'm slurring my speech so often, because I can't believe the enormity of the crimes committed by our press media and our governments and all the officials that tell us lies and mislead us. Let me tell you about the 2021 New York Times article. It stated, so far there's no data linking the vaccines to changes in menstruation. Even if there is a connection, one unusual period is no cause for alarm. While many researchers firmly believe there is little to no proof of a causal connection and menstrual dysregulation and the COVID shots, other researchers have stressed that women are indeed biologically different to men. Researchers stress that women are biologically different to men. We should know that. We can see it with our own eyes. I'm sorry. It gets to me. It really gets to me, this nonsense that it takes scientists and doctors to tell us that a woman and a man are different. We should know the difference. We've got daughters, we've got wives, we've got girlfriends. That there are valid concerns about how COVID shots affect menstrual cycles, and that those changes should be taken seriously and thoroughly investigated rather than dismissed. That's my point of view. We should be listening, we should be watching, we should be acting, we should be concerned that the menstrual cycle is being affected. It's being made dysfunctional, and it's causing our women to experience more cycles, more intense cycles, or to lose their cycle altogether with premature aging, the menopausal. It's also affecting the fertility of our women. We need to see if it's affecting the men's fertility as well, of course. But and this one we're concentrating on the women. And isn't it frightening that no one's bothered? The fertility is dropping, and we've got to realise that our populations in Britain is going down by the indigenous people, by the the majority ethnic groups, and it's being hidden by immigration, both legal and illegal immigration into this country, into England, Wales and Scotland. Immigration is hiding the fact that the British people are disappearing. We are not producing enough children. What we're doing is not replacing ourselves. Maybe you agree with that. Maybe you don't. But what I'm saying is the menstrual cycle is being affected. It's affecting our women, and it's the vaccines they're given, which are measured for men and not for women. And let's face it, men's bodies are bigger, our bones are denser, our frame is bigger, our muscles are bigger, our whole body is bigger. And so the amount a woman should have should be half of what we have. And it's not, and yet it's not being done that way. It's causing ill health. It's causing stillbirths. It's causing abnormalities in the fetus, our unborn children. The medical profession is not taking care of us the way it should. It is following big pharma. It's following profit and not health. That's all for me. But I'd like to hear your comments. I'd like to read them. I'd like to be to see if you like these posts or not. And I would also urge you to subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you a penny. It doesn't cost you a cent. It doesn't even cost you a rupee. It's totally free, so why not? Subscribe, press the subscribe button, and it means it hasn't cost you anything, but it will bring you back to hear more of what I have to say, and it helps me to continue with these posts and the research I do. So until the next one, bye for now. Bye.